Welcome to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs. I'm Lynette Turner, your host, and today my guest and I are talking about the honest moment when your business stops feeling right. You still love parts of it, but the other parts drain you. You want to pivot, but you're not sure how, and you definitely don't want to do it with guilt. In this episode, we're taking a clear look at your business, what's working, what lights you up, and what to release so you can make space for new opportunities, more growth, more revenue, and more happiness. My guest today is Toni Shelaske. Toni, I'm going to hand the floor over to you. Give yourself a bit of an introduction, and then we'll take it from there.
Hi, Lynette. Thanks for having me. This is a perfect conversation for me to have because I am 58. I have been an entrepreneur since I was 30. So at the beginning of 2025, sold a business that I owned for 16 years. So I went through a huge change that I'm happy to share all of the nuances of what went into that, when it started, when my aha moment was, why I did what I did.
Okay, so let's get into it. So first of all, it's kind of a really cool business. Tell us a little bit about the business itself.
Sure. So I owned healthy pet products. So they are all natural and organic pet food stores with really a focus on community education, teaching people holistic ways and not ways to not always rely on medication and prescription food. Not that I'm totally against those, but there's so much happening in the pet space naturally and from a health perspective, that pets are really struggling these days. So there's a lot of holistic ways that I live my life by and how I feed and care for my pets. So that's what my stores, even though they were brick and mortar, that's what my stores really were. You'd walk into my store and probably 30 to 60 minutes later, after you tell me or a staff member your entire health history of your pets, then we would make some recommendations on some things you can do. So I owned 3 stores in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area for, like I said, 16 years. One, then the other opened. And I actually have a 4th location in Florida that I do still own. So I had 3 stores, very high volume, not small boutique stores. So I had, when I was at my full capacity, I had 45 employees.
Okay. Wow. So big model. And you ended up making the decision, I guess, last year to close 3 of those 4 stores. So first question that a lot of people would think is like, why? Why? What was that exact moment that you knew kind of that you had to sort of change the model? I think we, as midlife women who own businesses, we go through it all the time. There's things that we like about our business. There's things that we don't like about our business, but to make such a big decision to sell off 3 of those stores, that's what you did? You sold them off? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what was that moment? Like, how did it feel,
Yeah. So it was a long time coming. And honestly, I hate to say it, but COVID probably started the process. So, because that was very challenging to navigate through. We did a great job. Fortunately, I had a great management team to help me through it, but that started it then. And it was just honestly the management of employees. That is my least favorite thing about my business. Even though it is truly a mission driven business, I truly care about educating people as much as I possibly can about alternative options that they have. But it really started to wear on me. I mean, retail's tough. And I owned 3 stores by myself. I was the sole owner. So I knew going through 2020 that it was time to start an exit strategy. I knew in my heart of hearts that I did not want to exit the business on a bad note. It is so important to me. I have such a love for my business that I wanted to exit on my terms and when I still was happy doing what I was doing so that I had good memories to end with. So 2022, I really started to get into the nuts and bolts and come up with, went through the whole get business analysis of what it's worth and all that sort of thing. I really did not want to sell out to a corporation. So I went to another locally owned pet food store. They have 2 locations, smaller than me, but they were still locally owned. And I sat down with them and said, hey, I am starting to think it's time for me to exit. do you have any interest in purchasing my company? Fortunately, they said yes, and that they were actually honored that I would come to them. And so it was the best case scenario because it's still locally owned.
Yeah, no, that's great. When you were talking about that, how did you know that that was the piece of the business that you were gonna, because you still have a business.
Mhm.
I'm just thinking as a, midlife woman, she's running her business. There's, all these different areas. She looks at her business model and says something's not working, right?
Mhm.
She's looking at it kind of like from the moment her spark, I guess, or her energy drops for it. She's looking for, if she's got a staff that she's dealing with, kind of like the direction that it's headed, maybe it's getting a bit stale. She's got to kind of do a little bit of sort of modification of the model. And then what's bringing in revenue? And I think that when you're trying to make a decision like you made, the first thing I might think about is, well, do I have to give it all up or
Mhm.
are there just pieces of it? So
Mhm.
walk us through a little bit of your thinking around that.
Sure. So I knew that I was getting anyone listening to this and you, I think, will also understand this. An entrepreneur's brain, we always have to be creating. So, and this sounds a little bit arrogant, but with healthy pet products towards the end, like towards 2020, 21, 22, I was like, I invented the wheel. I don't know how to become any more creative in this business model. I can only do so many floor moves. I can only do, you know, try new products or education ideas and seminars and all this sort of things. It was getting a little redundant for me, even though I still loved it. So I thought to myself, I've always wanted to do a podcast. So I started the podcast in 2022. The grand plan was I would start my podcast, start to make a revenue from my podcast. That would be my focus, which would allow me to lift up my management team and let them take more of the wheel of healthy pet products. But as you know, podcasts are very difficult to build and maintain and make money from, right? So it just didn't work. And I still have my podcast, and it's still not making money. But that was the grand plan and it just didn't work. So I was like, okay, well, at least I have my podcast to fall back on. I'm going to sell the business. And I think it was just, I knew the 3 stores in Pittsburgh were just killing me. Like they're high volume stores. I mean, my 2 of my stores are over 4,000 square feet. I have one that's over 8,000 square feet with a grooming shop. So that's a lot. And I had the Florida store and also thought, well, maybe I'll winter in Florida part time, or I don't know, which that hasn't happened either. So that's where my brain was going.
Okay, and so when you think about it, it was like you did your first check-in, I suppose, with like how you were feeling just about your whole business, right? You enjoyed the aspects, I'm assuming because you're running a podcast, you enjoyed the aspects of talking about healthy pets and what you
Mhm.
can do for your pets. You had sort of mentioned that the staff was sort of starting to kind of like staff management, I guess, was starting to weigh on you. How did you know, or I guess when you were thinking, if I strip out this store, it's going to be a big cash flow
Mhm.
deficit, if
Mhm.
you will, in your business. So how did you start to manage that kind of thinking?
Sure. So one of my best friends, who's also my accountant and business, I don't really make any decisions without running them by her. I went to her and I said, and my financial advisor, I went to both of them and I said, here's what I'm thinking. How is this going to pan out for the next 30? What does this look like? So they both, and they talk to one another and they both kind of build out almost, what would like I business plan's not the right word, but a projection of because of how much I would get, how we can structure it, where we can put it, how I can, continue my life and not and lose that essentially lose that income from the business.
Okay, so when you think about that, how did you lose that identity, I guess, as a store owner?
It was absolutely not easy. So it's been over a year, because we literally closed like January 1st of 2025 just to make it a clean cut tax wise and otherwise. So it was It's hard. I mean, that's what I did for 16 years, and I pour my heart and soul into what I do. So, it's like mourning a death. So I think that you go through different stages, you really do. And then things happen that you run into customers in the grocery store and you break down into tears. I go to a local farm here and they know me there because I'm a regular. And a woman came up to me and I'll tear up telling it right now. She said to me, "Boy, do I miss your stores." And like, I just, when you have that moment that you don't expect is coming, that you literally are like waterworks. And I am not a big crier, but literally she said that to me and the tears just poured out of my eyes. And even though I was crying, she kept talking about how great my stores were. And which just made the whole thing worse. The poor woman that owns the farm, she didn't know what to do for me. She's like, "Oh, Toni, we love you so much. It's okay. It's okay." I was like, so it's been hard. And with the podcast, I'm still doing what I did on the sales floor with Healthy Pet Products. I am still sharing information with more people than I did in my stores about holistic avenues that they can take. And I love doing my podcast, but it's different. And I'm home now, whereas normally I'd be on the sales floor all day long because that's where I like to be. So that's just a very different life. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, yeah. So the path you chose really was just sort of this partial, release of some of the business kind of thing. So you got rid of the stores, but you now you have more time actually to focus on the podcast because you had
Mhm.
the podcast going. You have more time to focus on the podcast. And I did take a little sneak peek into your website. Talk a little bit about what your plans are for your website.
Yeah, so my website, I want it to be a destination for pet parents as well. So I have a blog page where I publish articles, so it's easy for people to go to if they need quick information. Also, I have a Tony's Picks page. So what Tony's Picks are my manufacturers that I have built relationships with over the past over 16 years now that I truly trust in their products, believe in their products, have a good relationship with the owner and that sort of thing. So also like an avenue for people to go to if for some reason they can't get me as quickly as they need to get me. I was honestly, Lynette, I was going to do, I'm not consult, but like advising, like almost like a health coach, like humans have a health coach. So there are health coaches in the pet space, but I changed my mind on that. I really just want to interview great guests, share information. I can guide people. I am approached daily by multiple people on different questions, even on what I use for myself. A friend of mine just reached out to me yesterday and she said, "Hey, what toothpaste do you use?" And then her second text was human, not dog. Because I practice what I preach. I really try to live, chemical free and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. So you kind of are in semi-retirement. Would you say that? Or are you trying to go all in on kind of this next phase, but just it looks a little bit different?
So I am resistant to using the word retirement, even with
Yeah.
semi attached to it. All of my friends and my people around me are like, "Toni, you're retired." I'm like,
Mhm.
"I'm not," because I really don't want to retire. We all hear about what happens to people when they retire. Plus, I have that brain. You know what I mean? Like, I need to be just managing my dogs and training my dogs and doing my yard work and gardening. And that's not enough for me. I have the podcast. I still have the Florida store, which I go to only about 3 or 4 times a year for a week or 2 at a time. And then I have another business that is a Pittsburgh themed dog and cat toys, collars, leashes, stickers, magnets, all that kind of stuff. So, I have other things going on and I love to talk to people like you or have speaking engagements, even if it's, not pet related and it's more like, inspiring young people that they can do their own thing and don't be afraid to, try a business idea if you have a business idea. So,
Exactly. So when I think about your website, I think about that it's kind of like it feels like a bit of a lifestyle page, but for pets, right?
yeah.
So on that one, your pics page, is it with like when you think about a revenue model, do you have like affiliate links there, or is it just these are your top picks? Like, how are you planning on bringing in revenue, knowing full well that podcasting is very difficult? So let's talk a little bit about your revenue model now moving forward. And is it a real priority for you, the revenue side of it, or is it just the love for what you're doing and now you're sort of giving back to the community, if you will?
Yeah. So the revenue model is a work in progress. I have put a time limit on it because even though I love providing the information and still want to continue doing this, I do have a sound engineer. There is a cost involved, and I'm giving it till fall of 2026 to see if I can start generating some income. So I don't the current manufacturers that are on my website, no affiliate link set up whatsoever. They are just 3 manufacturers that are truly friends of mine that I have great relationships with and have trusted their products for many years. The affiliate link thing, it's so minute, like you really have to build that up for it to even make it worth it. So my plan is to charge manufacturers to be on my Tony's Picks page. So like a monthly fee, or if you pay for a year, it's this much kind of situation. And you're going to be my go-to for this circumstance, that circumstance. You're going to get a call out on social media. This is, build a package. I'm building a package for the manufacturers that I want to be on my Tony's Picks page. So also not easy. I've built sponsorship packages and that sort of thing. So I think a lot of people in the industry, because I am very well known in the pet industry, expected me to just completely exit. So I think it's taking them time as well as me time to realize what's happening here. So I want to be a voice in the industry now. So I'm working on that. Positive thing, I serve on several boards, but one of them that I serve on is very important. It's called Indie Pet. So it's an organization that we created that is not all of them, but independent pet food stores in the country can join our organization. It's only $50 per door, and we help them to become prosperous and profitable. So I'm a board member for IndiePet, and I really think that will help me with some traction. And I'm going to a trade show here coming up in March. I got a speaking engagement. It's not a paid speaking engagement because it's the pet industry and it just doesn't currently exist as a paid thing.
Yeah. When I'm just thinking about, I'm sort of visualizing your journey. You've 16 years running 4 stores. You've kept one. Doesn't sound like it's very heavy lift for you. You visit it 2 or 3 times a year. You probably got a great management team out there. And then as we all do, we all kind of like start to think, oh, okay, so now I've got all this time. When you think about the first 90 days after you closed on your business and you're starting the new year, what road are you taking to try to start to look at these opportunities? Because sometimes it could feel like a little bit of, I have no idea. And so
Yeah.
I'm just going to get on the path and keep going.
Yeah.
But it sort of sounds like you are doing the right things. You're networking, you're going to these, conferences and things like that. But to really, truly redefine your business model, what are the steps you're taking?
So I fly by the seat of my pants. I wish I could tell you and your listeners that this is what my plan was. A, B, C, D, E. I didn't have that. The first 90 days after I sold, I literally probably put on 10 miles inside my house because it was winter and I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I just would shift from place to place to place to place to place. And I've never worked at home in my life. So I'm the kind of person that I would clean my house before I would tackle a work project. So I was a wreck. Everyone said, give yourself time, because my brain just wasn't there. I only knew I wanted to do the podcast and at least break even. I'll be happy if I break even. And I just kind of reached out to different people, friends and business people. And I'm like, this is where I'm at. What do you think I should do? And they were all like, because I was hard on myself. I was like, I should know what I'm doing. I should know what I'm doing. I have been very successful to this point. There's no reason why I shouldn't be successful. as successful at this podcast. And in my brain, I'm not where I should be. So I am definitely beating myself up about that. So I am now a little more planned about it as I just kind of played out. I have a timeline. I'm doing a better job at building these little sponsorship packages. So now it's a matter of presenting those, having those conversations with those manufacturers and saying, listen, this is what I'm doing. And including my 3 manufacturers that are on there now. They're friends of mine, but I'm not going to keep them on there if they're not going to pay me. Right?
Exactly, exactly. At some point, we've got to stop giving away everything for free.
Mhm.
I mean, there's a little bit of it too, where, you've got this aversion to selling. So you're like, oh, I'd rather just give it away for free than to sell it. But I think that, I mean, to me, I even said it to you when I went to your website. We had our pre-call, I think in October of last year, and then now we're just recording today. And so I did poke around into your website, and I told you that before we started recording here that I felt like I could feel your vision coming to life on your website. And sometimes you just need that feedback.
Yeah.
And I also think too, like for anybody that's listening, we never always have to start out with a minimal viable product and get out there and start testing it. And that's when things start to take shape. I used to be like, oh, always looking at the end destination and then just plowing forward to that. But I've realized now that everything is a minimal viable product and everything is malleable and then keep going. And even when I think about podcasting, why do I want a podcast? Like, that's a question for you is like, why do you want a podcast?
Mhm.
You really have to love, I
Yeah.
think, what you're doing. That's the
Yeah.
first thing I would say to you is like, or ask you, why podcasting?
So I really do enjoy it. It's not laborious for me, especially since I have a sound engineer. So that kind of stuff I don't have the brain for. I don't have that patience to go through it all. So the fact that I can just jump on and talk, I don't even plan out my talks. I just ad lib everything. But I have been talking about pet food and supplements and all of these things for so many years that it's just off the cuff easy for me. So I love my podcast and I really hope to continue it. And another cool thing is I can do it anywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so when we decide, it's time to find a place in somewhere and winter somewhere else, I can still do it there.
Yeah, no, for
So
sure. So one of the things I want to ask you is like, if somebody was listening to this podcast right now and thinking, you know what? I need to do something about my business. I just don't know what it is. What would you say to them to kind of give them advice of like, what to look at in their business?
So I think that you have to lift up the hood and ask yourself honestly, is your business still feeding your soul or bleeding your soul? And even though you can still love it and want to continue doing it, if it's really being a vampire to you and bleeding your soul, then it's time to make a change because that's why we're I believe that's why we're entrepreneurs and business owners because they're more than just businesses to us. These are sparks. That's a great word that you use. It's a spark. It's an idea that really like lights you up. So when that light starts to dim, then it's time to either completely exit or pivot.
Yeah. And I like that because, everybody out there that's any kind of successful entrepreneur says, follow your heart, follow what lights you up and don't worry about the money. It'll come, and
Mhm.
I think that's such a good way of thinking about it because I mean, even, just to use myself as an example here,
Yeah.
but, I started my podcast a couple of years ago just because I needed to create content. So I thought, well, what a great way to create content. But what I realized at the beginning of last year of 2025 is I actually really liked it. And the minute I committed to it because of the love for it was always like, oh, how many people? I was always watching the numbers. But now what I feel like is I'm creating this community. And I feel like,
Mhm.
it's very parallel in your
Very.
conversation. You're building this community and eventually that community will stir opportunities that you have no idea But what I had to do was let go of a few things. For me, I had to let go of chasing the metrics, chasing the numbers, how many downloads and how many subscribers.
Hmm.
I had to like let that go, even though I know those are important things. I now only am following, maybe two KPIs for my podcast side of my business. And it feels good. It feels light. It feels like I can, and then other things start to show up. And I feel like that's when you start to make space, which is what you did, ideas will start to form the minute you're on the path, and you are on the path and things are starting to sort of shape. So from your perspective, what would you say? What is the one thing that you would say to a listener about maybe the guilt about changing course?
Oof.
What would be one action she could take right after listening to this podcast?
I think you have to look yourself in the mirror and just realize you have to do what's right for you. I really think and there will be guilt and there will be I don't have regret over selling my business. I truly don't. It was time and I think that and you'll go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, but you have to let yourself go back and forth and back and forth and talk to people. I don't regret it, but boy do I miss it.
Yeah. And as I think about you and I just think there's so many things you could do. And I'm sure there are millions of people saying, "Oh, you should, you should, you should,
Ugh,
you
drives
should."
me nuts. As soon as I hear you should, the hair just oh, I hate that so much. Sorry. It's such
Exactly.
a
And there are probably, hundreds. I can think of 10 things off the top
yeah.
of my head, but you have to follow the heart. And that's what I'm hearing from you is like, what lights me up? What doesn't light me up?
Mhm.
And I'm going to get rid of the stuff that doesn't light me up. Either I'm going to outsource that to somebody else, like you said about your podcast production, or I'm just going to eliminate it completely. But it doesn't mean it's complete and absolute pivot. So, Toni, where do people find you?
Tony at tonyunleashed.com is my email. My website is tonyunleashed.com. On social media, it is all Tony Unleashed. Some of it, Instagram is Tony.unleashed.
Yeah.
But I am here happy to help entrepreneurs, pet parents. I just like to help people and help people to help their pets thrive.
Toni, thank you for coming on to the show today and sharing your story and your vulnerability because, you don't have all the answers, but without question, I think I'm going to watch where you go because I feel like it's there. You've got the foundation, you've stripped out everything, the foundation is there. And now I just can't wait to see how you grow this next chapter of your life.
Thanks, Lynette. I'm really happy to know you.
Thank you.